At the current stage of human civilization development, when the global population has exceeded 8 billion, humanity is facing a phenomenon that can be called a true demographic explosion or rapid growth occurring with astonishing speed and intensity. This situation has caused serious changes in social, economic, and ecological spheres, especially noticeable on the continent that most clearly demonstrates these processes, the Asian continent. And it is here, in this vast space, that the two largest countries in the world are concentrated, China and India, each of which has become home to a significant portion of the world's population. Together, these two nations, stretched across enormous territories, encompass more than a third of all the Earth's inhabitants. These countries are not just geographical units, but have become powerful, unprecedented centers of human population concentration, transforming them into special epicenters of global demographic dynamics. As a result, they have turned into major global reservoirs of labor resources, supplying the world market daily with the most accessible and cheapest labor, a value as significant as natural resources or technological know-how. Amid large-scale and systemic changes in their population numbers, especially in their urban agglomerations, one of the most vibrant and diverse metropolises in India, Mumbai, holds a special place. This city can be rightly called a living, dynamically changing organism, a peculiar embodiment of all the contradictions brought about by modern urbanization. Mumbai is not just a large city, it is a true symbol, a metaphor reflecting all the complexities, contradictions, and opportunities characteristic of this stage of human civilization's development. Its streets and neighborhoods are places where human ambitions intertwine with despair and hopelessness, to such an extent that a unique social and economic dynamic is created, often bordering on crisis. Mumbai is a multifaceted entity where, in essence, the laws of survival, principles of existence and development are rewritten daily. Millions of people here struggle for their place in the sun, often literally, as each morning and each new day is a test of endurance and the ability to adapt to harsh living conditions, constantly facing resource limitations and pressing urban problems. This city is where a substantial part of India's industrial potential is concentrated and where the main indicators of the country's economic development are located. Within its boundaries are districts like Dharavi, the largest slum in the world, known worldwide and symbolizing humanity's incredible ability to adapt and survive even in the harshest conditions. Attempts to accurately count the population of Mumbai are akin to trying to count the grains of sand caught by the raging winds of a sandstorm, an infinitely complex and almost impossible task. Official statistical data, collected and systematized by various institutes and agencies, often lag behind the rapidly changing reality, as migratory flows constantly bring new residents into the city. Social and demographic studies indicate that the official population of the Mumbai metropolitan area is about 26 million people, which is already impressive. However, most scientists and experts believe that this figure is likely underestimated by at least roughly 50%, as the actual influx of migrants and newcomers arriving here daily and hourly is so vast that an exact count is practically impossible. To grasp the scale of such a population, it suffices to say that Mumbai's population exceeds that of most European countries combined into a single entity. In reality, it is larger than the entire population of Australia, which numbers approximately 24 million. It also surpasses by 2 times the combined populations of Belgium and the Netherlands. All these people live on an area significantly smaller than the Moscow Ring Road that encircles the city. In some parts of Mumbai, the population density reaches an astonishing 100,000 people per square kilometer, transforming personal space into an almost unattainable and intolerably intrusive level. During rush hours, especially in the mornings and evenings, the central streets of the city often display scenes where each square meter of sidewalk is occupied by 2 to 3 people, creating a constant sense of suffocation, pressure, and crowding. Even when the street seems somewhat freer, this pervasive and relentless congestion is still felt. The city is located on the coast of the Indian Ocean, on the western coast of the Indian subcontinent, on an island called Salsette, connected to the mainland by a network of bridges and causeways, which plays a very important role in its fate and characteristics. This geographical feature, This bridge between the island and the mainland is one of the key factors influencing Mumbai's development dynamics, challenges, transportation organization, logistics, infrastructure, and the daily life of its numerous residents. Territorial constraints faced by the city create natural barriers to its expansion and growth. These barriers force the population to seek alternative avenues for development, resulting in the emergence of high-rise residential complexes and multi-level housing estates, often replacing historic neighborhoods. The western part of the city's suburban area has acquired a special charm due to its waters washing the Arabian Sea. This small stretch of coast, initially creating the illusion of a resort area, attracting tourists and locals with its peaceful nature, reveals a completely different picture upon closer inspection. The shoreline, once filled with pleasant, light-colored sand, now resembles a grim sight, transformed into a strip of mud scattered with trash and various remnants of human activity. Beaches that could serve as a vibrant embodiment of natural beauty and a peaceful retreat now look dull and neglected. The bright white sand, once pleasing to the eye, has been overtaken by tracts of debris, broken objects, and various leftovers left by visitors and local life. The ocean water, once clear and pure, now appears dirty and murky. Its hue has taken on a characteristic brownish or earthy color, a result of numerous industrial discharges, sewage outflows, and ongoing pollution. It seems to absorb waste and toxins, destroying the solitude and beauty of this natural space. To the north and east of the city stretch riverbeds, which, like capricious creatures, turn into swift, surging streams during the monsoon season, washing away everything in their path. In dry periods, these rivers are no less significant. They expose their drainage channels, becoming vulnerable and open to various types of contamination, turning them into breeding grounds for diseases and infection hotspots. These rivers, in theory, could serve as sources of life-giving water and support for the city's development. Yet today, they resemble hazardous bodies of water from which diseases and epidemics spread. The history of this metropolis's modern name is akin to a captivating novel, full of cultural changes, political ambitions, and historical events. In the very beginning of the 10th century, Portuguese sailors reaching this land's shores were struck by its natural beauty and magnificent natural harbor. It was precisely because of this natural wealth that they named the place Mumbai, which translates to beautiful bay. The name was a well-deserved compliment to its unique natural outline and has forever remained in the memory of European travelers. However, the irony of fate lies in the fact that after several centuries of European admiration for its natural splendors, this place turned into one of the most polluted aquatic environments on the entire planet. An important point is that as their colonial position strengthened, the British authorities decided to change the Portuguese name and gave it a new one, Bombay, under which the city existed for more than 1.5 centuries. This version became a symbol of colonial legacy, a reminder of the past when expansion and economic power defined the city's appearance. At the same time, it served as a reminder of the lost cultural identity that colonization largely displaced. At the same time, this city became known as a center of political and economic power, attracting attention as one of India's largest business and trading hubs. In the 1990s, significant changes occurred within this cultural and historical context. In 2000, as part of a policy to abandon remnants of the colonial era, the city was officially renamed Mumbai, in honor of the local goddess Mumbai. This renaming went beyond mere symbolic gesture. It became an important part of a broader campaign to restore national and cultural identity. Not only politicians and historians worked on this change, but also residents eager to revive indigenous traditions and distance themselves from the legacy of colonial domination. The decision sparked lively debate among the population. Older generations, especially those who remembered the golden days of the 1960s when the city was still called Bombay, perceived the old name with nostalgia, associating it with bright moments of their youth and dreams of success and prosperity. Their memories remain vivid, and for them, the old name continues to symbolize a piece of the city's former grandeur. In contrast, the younger generation, raised in the new era of independence and national awakening, does not hold strong emotional ties to the colonial past. For them, Mumbai is the only correct name, emphasizing a new identity, independence, and cultural revival. The economic fabric of Mumbai serves as a vivid example of social heterogeneity and deep contradictions within modern society. An average worker engaged in routine professions earns between 8 and 16,000 rupees, which at current rates is roughly equivalent to $100 to $200. These earnings seem negligible given the high standard of living in the city, where banking, financial, and business centers are concentrated. Approximately 6% of the country's gross domestic product is generated here, and its territory is home to numerous billionaires and wealthy individuals whose wealth reaches billions of dollars. This social divide highlights one of the greatest contradictions of modern Mumbai. On one side, poverty, on the other, the luxury of wealth. Regarding the work culture in this metropolis, it is built on strict and relentless norms. It is widely accepted that one must work without rest or not work at all, and the phrase work or die is often taken literally. Such a mindset has become ingrained at the level of collective consciousness, making the city a peculiar battleground for every minute and every rupee. Despite its wealth and rapid development, the city is characterized by an atmosphere of fierce competition, which shapes the everyday life of its inhabitants. Unemployment or begging in modern society are perceived not only as personal failures or temporary misfortune, but also as a profound social shameful phenomenon that can lead a person to complete alienation from the community. Such an attitude creates a special atmosphere of constant tension and anxiety, in which every individual feels their vulnerability and is forced to fight for the right to exist, proving their necessity and importance through diligent work. In conditions similar to a megacity, such as Mumbai, a workday rarely fits within the typical 8-hour schedule. Most people work beyond the standard working hours, often juggling multiple jobs to provide themselves and their families with the minimum necessary to survive. On average, workers in this city spend from 10 to even 14 hours a day on their jobs, frequently moving from one field of activity to another without rest or recovery. For example, one might be employed at a textile factory in the mornings, work as a loader during the day, and sell handmade goods on the street in the evening to cover current expenses. This intense and exhausting work environment in Mumbai is not due to its residents' particular enthusiasm or love for their work. It is much more driven by the harsh necessity to survive amid fierce competition and constantly rising living costs. Covering an area of just over 633 square kilometers and home to approximately 25 million people, the city's economy operates on such a scale and turnover that it can be compared to the activities of entire countries. In this metropolis, countless small and large efforts resemble an anthill. Tiny ants, each insignificant on its own, together form a complex and reliable system. Every person in this city is like a small gear in a vast machine whose role is crucial to the overall mechanism. Without their titanic labor and patience, the city simply could not function. Mumbai is like a powerful magnet, drawing crowds from all over the Indian subcontinent. Every day, numerous trains arrive crowded with passengers who, with only modest belongings, dream of a better and more dignified life. Their main goal is not only to improve their living conditions, but often simply to leave themselves a chance for survival. The migrants coming to this gigantic city can be roughly divided into several main groups. The largest and most suffering of them are people fleeing rural areas, driven by the desire to escape poverty. Part 6 of 14. All droughts, poor harvests, poverty, and debt bondage force peasants to leave their native lands and head to the urban jungles in search of a better fate and new opportunities. Among them are people who, without hope for a harvest, are compelled to seek themselves in concrete streets, risking to be left without means of subsistence, as hopes for a crop have diminished in recent times. The second group consists of young people filled with dreams and hopes of building their future in the film industry. Since Mumbai is the center of India's film industry, a huge number of young talents arrive here every year, eager to make a loud statement on screen, attain fame, and success. These young individuals come inspired by star examples and dreams of fame, often leaving their homes and families in the hope of overcoming their fears and demonstrating their abilities in the harsh competition environment. The third category includes students aiming to obtain quality education at the city's prestigious universities. Mumbai boasts extensive educational experience and can pride itself on institutions of global standards, especially in fields such as technical sciences and business. However, the quality and prestige of such educational institutions are directly linked to high costs of tuition and living expenses. For many young people from less affluent families, studying in Mumbai remains out of reach, as paying for education and accommodation is a significant challenge. Only talented students who secure scholarships or have financial support can afford to get an education in this metropolis. It's worth emphasizing that those who come to Mumbai do so not by chance or for entertainment. The exorbitant cost of living acts as a strict filter, screening out those without a clear plan and concrete goal. Every newcomer understands that their time in the city is limited, and they need to find ways to earn a living as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the city, ruthless to those who cannot adapt or cope, will mercilessly send them back to where they came from. The housing crisis in Mumbai has long transformed into a large-scale humanitarian catastrophe. Despite the apparent urban luxury and development dynamics, a vast number of people are forced to live in cramped, often unsafe conditions, where finding decent and affordable housing becomes increasingly difficult each year. Housing in such conditions has become one of the most acute and painful issues, not only for individual families, but for the city as a whole. The average rent for a one-room apartment of about 25 to 30 square meters in fairly decent districts of Mumbai often ranges from 40,000 to 60,000 Indian rupees per month, which can be roughly equated to around $500. And it should be noted that the average income of urban residents is around 12 to 15,000 rupees per month. This ratio means that housing costs in this metropolis often consume anywhere from 80 to 100% of a family's income. This incredible economic reality has prompted local residents to invent special forms of shared living arrangements that help cope with the unbearable situation in some way. The most common and striking practice is living in one-room apartments, where 6 to 8 people may reside simultaneously. These individuals often work in different shifts, some in the early morning hours, others at night, and take turns using the same sleeping spaces. This scheme is popularly known as cot bedding, or hot beds. The name accurately reflects the essence: beds that almost never have time to cool down, since the shift of sleepers on them changes nearly hourly, and often even more frequently. As a result, shortly after some residents leave, others move in, and this process repeats throughout the day. Beds in this city are like a hot braid that never cools down. Those with slightly greater financial means, capable of paying 8 to 10,000 rupees per month, have the prospect of acquiring a two-room apartment of about 50 to 60 square meters. However, even such housing, by modern European standards, cannot be considered truly comfortable or suitable for permanent residents, with about 10 to 12% of the cost. Inside these apartments, poor ventilation often affects residents' health and well-being. Complete lack of proper soundproofing means even minor noises in the evening become a source of constant irritation, and unreliable infrastructure often fails to provide the necessary level of comfort. A paradoxical situation exists in the metropolis regarded as India's financial capital, Mumbai. This city, created as a hub of business activity, accounts for a significant portion of the country's economic potential and is often called the Indian financial gem. Yet it demonstrates a striking contradiction between real estate prices and the standard of living. The cost of housing in Mumbai is comparable to real estate prices in European capitals like London or Paris, where prices reach astronomical levels. However, despite such high prices, the quality of life and infrastructure are noticeably inferior to European standards. Most residential units within the metropolis are merely temporary shelters, often with low comfort, poor ventilation, inadequate soundproofing, and neglected infrastructure that is frequently in a state of disrepair. The explanation for this contradiction lies in the peculiarities of the real estate market and land policy. Part 8 of 14. In Mumbai, there is a severe shortage of available land plots, leading to artificial land scarcity and, consequently, rising prices. This shortage is created by speculative transactions and is controlled by several large construction corporations, major players in the market, who shape the main deals and directly influence price formation. As a result, housing prices continue to soar like a hot air balloon, reaching levels that are virtually unattainable for the average citizen. All this creates a vicious cycle where demand significantly exceeds supply and the market keeps pushing prices upward. Despite the wealth and advanced development of the financial and business sectors, the ecological situation in Mumbai leaves much to be desired, which can be more accurately described as a negative advertisement for the rapid growth of the metropolis. The air in this city contains such a high concentration of harmful substances that each breath can be compared to a slow, nearly endless process of self-destruction. Regularly, air quality indices here exceed 200 points, a level considered very dangerous for health. Doctors advise avoiding strenuous outdoor activities to reduce the risk of illness and deterioration of overall health. The main cause of such high pollution levels is the activity of industrial enterprises operating without modern filtration and emission cleaning systems. They release a vast amount of hazardous substances into the environment, negatively impacting public health. The transportation sector also plays a significant role in air pollution. According to official data, Mumbai has over 4,800,000 vehicles, most of which do not meet the minimum environmental standards adopted in many countries. Traffic density in the city reaches about 2,300 vehicles and motorcycles per square kilometer, turning the streets into real gas chambers where breathing becomes hazardous. This leads to serious problems for residents, causing an increase in respiratory diseases and a decline in overall well-being. The climate of this region exacerbates the situation. During the monsoon season, humidity reaches 90% and temperatures rarely drop below 25 degrees Celsius. These conditions create a greenhouse effect, trapping pollutants in the lower atmosphere layers and turning the sky above the metropolis into a constant brownish glow. This haze is especially noticeable from high altitudes and has become a characteristic sign of the critical air pollution level in this major industrial center. All these factors generate atmospheric pressure and deteriorate the quality of life, requiring urgent solutions and more effective measures to restore ecological order in the city. International scientific studies on air quality and environmental conditions continue to consistently list Mumbai among the most polluted cities on the planet. According to the World Health Organization, the level of atmospheric pollution in this large metropolis exceeds international standards by more than 6 times. Such a significant overrun of permissible limits indicates serious environmental problems faced by the city's residents, and the consequences of these adverse conditions are felt by every person living there. The expected results of this ecological situation do not take long to manifest. Among the first are noticeable deterioration in public health. Many people suffer from respiratory diseases, chronic bronchitis, asthma, due to constant exposure to dust, exhaust fumes, and toxic substances saturating the air of this megacity. In turn, these illnesses negatively impact overall life expectancy. Equally important to note is that in Mumbai, it is often difficult to speak of quality of life. The constant presence of traffic jams, noise, and hustle has become an integral part of urban culture, shaping the way of life for millions of inhabitants. Traffic congestion in this city can be considered one of its most characteristic features of modern existence. In many cases, it is no longer perceived as a temporary inconvenience, but has become a habitual part of daily life that residents have to accept. For the people of Mumbai, daily travel is not an occasional event, but a regular norm, taking up 3 to 4 hours a day. This means a huge portion of their lives is spent standing still or traveling on overcrowded buses, cramped trains, or simply stuck in traffic jams, often hours at a time in densely packed crowds. The city's transportation system, which has become an essential lifeline, includes railways, passenger stations, and buses, serving over 8 million passengers daily. The number of commuters is comparable to the population of some significant countries, illustrating the scale and complexity of urban transportation. Under such conditions, train carriages are literally bursting at the seams, and people are forced to cling to doorways or stand in queues under shelters just to stay upright and prevent falling. This undoubtedly creates dangerous situations. Every day, around 5 to 8 people are killed on railway tracks due to accidents, causing concern and outrage among residents and experts alike. As for the bus system, it also experiences severe overcrowding. During rush hours, when crowds of people rush to get to work or home, passengers literally storm the entrances like fortresses, often forcing drivers to resort to extreme measures, even forcibly closing the doors to prevent overcrowding in the carriage. As a result, each trip turns into a real test of patience and endurance, and comfortable travel is more of an exception than the rule. The main challenge for anyone who plans their route in advance, besides, of course, reaching the desired destination, becomes the question: how to maintain health and spirits, overcome all these obstacles, stay alive, and remain in a somewhat alert state. In this context, taxis and rickshaws undoubtedly serve as more convenient alternatives, as they offer a more comfortable and well-equipped way of getting around. However, for this luxury, you have to pay much more. UFA's prices are hidden behind high costs, and the time spent on the road often stretches into hours. Even such vehicles cannot fully avoid the unpleasant problems characteristic of large-scale traffic jams and congestion that plague the entire city. For example, a trip of 10 or 15 kilometers can take 2 or even 3 hours, depending on the time of day and the level of road congestion. During rush hours, especially in the morning and evening, traffic jams become truly unbearable, and there is no guarantee that you will arrive on time. Such assurances are usually absent. Despite these harsh living and working conditions in Mumbai, the residents still retain their human essence. Despite being surrounded by noise, hum, endless streams of cars, dirt and dust, boundless hustle and constant rush, they manage to preserve genuine kindness, sensitivity, and warmth. These people know how to show their friendliness even in the most difficult moments. When they are filmed on streets with a camera or photo shoot, their faces are most often illuminated by sincere smiles, full of goodwill, openness, and readiness to communicate. They easily engage in conversations, share their stories, offer help and hospitality, even when resources are often scarce. The ability of these people to adapt to the extreme conditions brought about by life in Mumbai is a wonderful example of human resilience, strength of spirit, and incredible endurance in the face of difficulties. It is such a spirit that allows them to remain lively and warm, even in the most challenging circumstances, turning daily hardships into a display of inner strength and genuine human qualities. On the streets of this city, people live not just to survive. Warm hope still burns in their hearts. They know how to find joy even in the smallest and seemingly ordinary everyday details. These people create families, care for their children, pass traditions from generation to generation, dreaming of a future that will be better than the present. Such resilience and unbreakable zest for life evoke genuine admiration and make one ponder what is truly necessary for a person to achieve genuine happiness and inner balance. However, observing this scene, an experienced and attentive observer sometimes notices that behind charming smiles and friendly attitudes, there is often deep fatigue and sometimes even silent despair. This is especially evident among middle-aged and elderly people who have spent many years in this city, often without significant improvements or positive changes. In their eyes, one can read an invisible yet very powerful question: why am I living like this? All the sadness and disillusionment are hidden behind phrases and smiles. Unfortunately, the urban reality offers no comforting or responsible solutions for these individuals, nor a clear understanding of how to change their fate for the better. Interestingly, the demographic picture of the passers-by in Mumbai surprises with their youthfulness. Most of them are young men under 35 years old. These people came here in search of work and new opportunities, hoping to build a better future for themselves and their families. At the same time, women are significantly less visible on the streets. This is due both to cultural traditions and safety considerations, which force women to move more cautiously and restrictively through city streets and alleys. Mumbai is also a vivid example of a modern survival economy in which the street entrepreneurs display incredible ingenuity, resourcefulness, and enterprise. Among them, street barbers, also called chakrulniks, hold a special place. They work directly on the sidewalks, literally outdoors. They lack the resources to rent full-fledged premises or open stationary beauty salons, so they create bright, noisy, and colorfully painted makeshift barbershops directly in the street space, often surrounded by passers-by. The prices for their services differ significantly from those of professional salons. A simple haircut costs them about 50 or 100 rupees, which translates to 6 to 12 cents in American dollars, sometimes a little more depending on the complexity of the work and location. In contrast, in modern salons of such cities, the same service costs around 815 rubles, which is several times more expensive than what street masters charge. This significant price difference is explained not only by the absence of rent and advertising expenses, but also by targeting an audience for whom even a small savings can sometimes be the only opportunity to look beautiful and well-groomed. The craftsmen working in such temporary barbershops often have considerable experience and skills accumulated over many years of work and practice, so the quality of their services is quite acceptable. However, it is important to note that the sanitary conditions in such makeshift salons are often deplorable. The tools used by these workers are not always properly disinfected or treated, and the workspaces are not protected from dust, exhaust fumes, and street pollutants that enter directly from outside. Primarily, people who seek help from street barbers are those for whom every, even the smallest rupee, is extremely valuable, and often literally critical for maintaining their fragile Russian balance. The clients of these street services are mostly hardworking and ordinary people for whom saving money is not just a choice, but a matter of survival. They often queue up precisely because these services are accessible. Even those with barely a few rupees in their pockets can get a haircut here. This becomes especially relevant in conditions where many residents are forced to economize on everything, from food to basic household expenses. Thus, street barber services serve as a kind of salvation for those who cannot afford expensive procedures in modern salons, and for many they are the only way to look well-groomed, even in makeshift conditions. Mumbai has developed a very complex and distressing waste management situation, which has already reached a serious crisis level, nearly approaching the complete collapse of the system. This megacity, with a population measured in millions, faces a constant problem. Every day, municipal trash containers on the streets begin to overflow shortly after dawn and reach capacity. Sometimes by midday, they are completely full, making timely waste collection and processing practically impossible. As a result, garbage lies on the streets and in various parts of the city, creating not only an unsightly and intolerable scene, but also a serious health threat to its residents. The root of this situation lies in the fact that the volume of waste generated in this multi-million city exceeds the capacity and resources of the specialized services responsible for collection, disposal, and recycling. Moreover, a significant portion of the waste collected in Mumbai today is non-recyclable. It is plastic, hazardous, or simply not sorted properly, leading to tons after tons of debris accumulating in different parts of the city, turning it into a chaotic mess of unnecessary and obstructive elements. This problem is further aggravated by the fact that landfills and waste accumulations are often created without proper oversight, often literally on wastelands or in empty yards, where there is no need for sorting or proper treatment. As a result, garbage dumps and landfills turn into more than just an unpleasant visual factor. They become sources of various infections, causing diseases and degrading the quality of life for residents of the metropolis. A particularly alarming situation concerns water resources, which have taken the form of a true ecological disaster. The rivers, canals, and water channels of the city, which once played a vital role in supply, transportation, and recreation, now resemble something else entirely. Open sewage collectors, where industrial and domestic wastewater, as well as trash and waste that are neither collected nor treated, are dumped daily. Among these waterways stands one river, which locals bitterly and ironically call the Garbage River. It has become a symbol of the profound destruction of the natural beauty of this region and the loss of its natural resources. The tropical climate characteristic of this area plays a dual role. On one hand, it provides mild and warm weather, but on the other, it accelerates the decomposition of organic waste, creating suffocating odors in the air that are almost impossible to endure at a distance. In such conditions, especially during hot days, bacteria and harmful microorganisms begin to proliferate actively, posing a serious threat to the health of residents living near these polluted waters. For people living close to these water bodies, breathing in these odors becomes a daily reality, but it inevitably leads to an increase in illness. Diseases of the gastrointestinal and respiratory systems are common among those forced to confront this environmental lawlessness every day. Sanitary conditions in slum areas suffer greatly, where centralized sewage systems are absent, and residents are forced to use public toilets or, worse, open spaces, yards, vacant lots, shorelines, for their basic needs. Under such circumstances, the risk of epidemics and the spread of infections rises sharply. These conditions make it impossible to follow basic hygiene rules. Every day, people face the threat of infection, and the state of infrastructure becomes increasingly catastrophic. As a result, Mumbai's infrastructure has become a stark example of what rapid urban growth, far exceeding the city's capacity for developing engineering and utility systems, can lead to. Over the streets, electrical networks and telecommunication cables are tangled in a web, not only damaging the city's appearance, but also posing serious dangers to its inhabitants. These problems are not unique to Mumbai. They are part of a broader picture of comprehensive urbanization in South Asia, where the rapid destruction of growing megacities amid inadequate infrastructural support becomes a real scourge for millions of people. In order to lay and create the necessary underground communications, immense funds are required, as well as meticulous, long-term planning, which are often lacking in the management of this city. As a result, the electricity supply in Mumbai becomes highly unstable. Power outages occur almost daily and can last from several hours to an entire day. This is especially critical for the operation of industrial enterprises, hospitals, and other important institutions, which are forced to rely on expensive and noisy generator sets to maintain their activities. Water supply in such unstable conditions also often experiences interruptions. In some districts, water is supplied only a few hours a day, forcing residents to store water in buckets, barrels, and various containers to sustain their daily lives and keep a reserve of this valuable resource in case of outages. Consequently, the quality of infrastructure and living conditions in this large Indian metropolis gradually deteriorate amid urgent demands of the times and the growing need to transform the city into a modern and comfortable place to live. Unfortunately, the state of tap water in our area leaves much to be desired. It often has very low quality and occasionally falls far short of ideal standards. In most cases, the water has an unpleasant, barely noticeable yellowish tint, which immediately evokes unpleasant associations and raises concerns when viewed. This peculiar coloration makes the water less appealing for use and undoubtedly causes worry among homeowners regarding its purity and safety. Additionally, the water emits a characteristic, quite sharp and unpleasant odor, which significantly worsens its perception and highlights the ongoing problem with the quality of water supply. This unpleasant feature clearly makes the water unsuitable for immediate consumption without some form of pretreatment. In most cases, before drinking or using tap water for cooking, it must be boiled, which requires additional time and causes inconvenience. This situation reflects the seriousness of the problem, where simple daily water consumption becomes a process requiring extra effort and care for its safety.